Well, good afternoon, everyone, and just delighted to be here at the Leaf with, I think we had a very good discussion today with the national Indigenous organizations. As well, we had at the table local representation from Treaty 1 First Nation and Chief Bluesky, who's here with us, as well as the Red River Métis President David Chartrand with us as well to talk about some of the local issues that we're facing out there. I think we had a very good discussion today. I think sometimes, we have, there's challenges, obviously. We won't always agree on everything, but I think that there's an opportunity out of these deliberations to find shared priorities, concerns, and focus on solutions to some of the challenges that are faced right across our country. I know that my colleagues and I share the importance of Indigenous issues right across the country, especially when it comes to reconciliation and wanting to move forward on some of those solutions and in support of reconciliation with Indigenous communities right across the country. So I want to thank all of the NIOs as well as our local leadership here in Manitoba who agreed to participate in today's deliberations. And I think with that, I will leave it at that for my opening comments, and perhaps I'll just step back and allow the others to have any opening comments that they have. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to the Premier for inviting the Red River government to be there. I've been at these forums for a lot of years and throughout my political career, and I truly liked today the exchange that was taking place. Premiers were interacting, asking very direct questions on just the fundamental principles of some of the challenges we all face, whether my government faces issues in housing, but what are the solutions to that? And that's what I think drew my interest, that the premiers were actually listening, the premiers were actually engaging, and that was quite, whether it's from Blaine from New Brunswick or as a premier, or whether it was Premier Dave from British Columbia, or it was Premier Mo from Saskatchewan. Each of the premiers were really inquisitive in the sense of trying to hear how did we go about changing some of the things. For example, housing. I gave an example. Well, we built 800 and something houses that for 800 families to live in, which is really over 2,000 children and parents living in 820 houses. And I did it with $11 million. I said, how can you do that? Simple. We took mortgages. We paid down the down payment for a mortgage. And we got our people to buy houses. And we bought $187 million worth of mortgages for our people. They bought it because they're all employed. All they need is a little break. So, that's how you address 1,000 houses. There it is. How do you then, we're repairing 2,000 houses. And we talk about some of the things that really prevent provinces from doing what they should be doing is sometimes the red tape. And at times as leaders at that level, we never go down deep into the bottom to see what the challenges are and why people are expressing that they're not receiving the profit or the profit supports from provinces after their taxes. So I think the exchange was well taken by us as the Red River Métis. We talked about a variety of things. Health, $46 billion. So they made it very clear it's not enough money from federal Canada. We just want, as you know, the Métis are negotiating health legislation with Canada right now, the first Métis health legislation in the country, and that will bring billions of dollars to our coffers that are our control. So why would we build a clinic side by side? A province and the Métis government build one clinic across the street from each other when we should build a clinic together and support and use money somewhere else. So these are kind of exchanges were taking place there. As I said, the premiers were very engaged. They were very cooperative in trying to see what they can do, what difference they can make. At the same time, we may have to work together to gang up on the federal government, is what some of the message was coming out of there at the same time. So, but again, I think it was clearly we left the room with a commitment that we are going to follow through, and we're going to meet each other again independently. It doesn't take this type of forum to meet with premiers. We can meet with premiers by writing a letter and going to our provinces and meet and see how do we work together. So as I said, kudos to the premiers for engaging, but really showing that they were interested, really showing that they want to learn. At the same time, they're willing to look at opportunities. If we can bring money to the table, they can bring money to the table, we would solve the same problem. So thank you very much for that.
I was very pleased to be here as president of the Native Women of Canada. It was a great opportunity to talk to all the premiers across the country. I think it was enlightening to them on what NWAC is doing right across with all our PTMAs and some of the programs and advocacy that we're doing across the country. And I hope this is just the beginning of some real, how could I say, powerful conversations that is yet to come. I want to thank you very much.
Yes, I'd like to echo the previous comments in regards to being grateful for the opportunity to come and speak to the premiers from here, from across Canada. The message that I left, and also the message that I could kind of hear across the table, is that it's time for our relationship with Indigenous peoples, our provincial representatives and Canadians to push reset and start to look at how we can start to really start the conversation about a mutually beneficial relationship within our territories. You know, it is an important thing for myself as a 60 Scoop survivor, and also as a First Nation person from my community, to understand that there's still a lot of pain out there, there's still a lot of suffering, still a lot of trauma that we're living with on the daily within our communities and within our families. And, you know, listening to the drumming and the woman that came here today, I want to acknowledge that there's still a lot of families that are suffering and living in sorrow from their family members being missing and murdered. And it's important for us to understand what our relationship is going to be moving forward in terms of having a meaningful dialogue with our premiers and with our representatives from across Canada. It's important for us to understand that there is need for us to start making space and making room for our Indigenous people, and starting to look at our path forward and not just continuing down the path that we've all inherited. So I'd like to just say miigwech and look forward to the work with Manitobans and Canadians. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It was certainly a pleasure for me to be here with the premiers to talk of issues throughout Canada. We talked a little bit about child welfare, the climate change, reconciliation, and just working together. Some of my brothers and sisters, that's exactly the words they said. We got to start working together and build ourselves. Should be no more fighting amongst ourselves. And you know, I'm very pleased that we some of that stuff come out. And again, I want to thank the Premier Stefanson, and as well as the rest of the premiers, to make sure that we are the Congress of Aboriginal People will be at the table every year that we meet, or whenever we meet, whether it's every year or every other, or halfway through. So thank you very much.
Okay. Any questions?
Premier, family members of missing Indigenous women and girls, they gathered here today in the lobby where you're meeting, and they called on you and other premiers to search landfills for their loved ones. Was there, and that's something that was echoed by the AFN regional chief today, was there any movement on this issue today at the talks?
So I've been very clear, first of all, you know, as a mother, my heart goes out to those individuals who have lost a loved one. And I can tell you that, but I'm also the Premier. And we have to make what is very, very difficult decisions. And this is a very difficult decision in Manitoba. But I can tell you that we cannot ignore the complexity of the issue and the objective viability of other considerations, things like toxic and hazardous waste that are in the landfill when it comes to a search, things like, you know, the health and safety considerations of those who would come forward and be those that search the landfill, and the likelihood and probability of finding, you know, the bodies of those individuals who who perished. Those are all considerations that we had to deal with, and so we have made our decision. But that doesn't mean, in any way, shape, or form, as I said to the families the other day, we want to be there for the families and offer the supports to help them heal through this process. Mental health supports, other supports that are needed in the healing process. We also have offered more supports for MMIWG Two-Spirit peoples as well, as they are embarking on this journey of losing their loved ones. We recognize this is a challenge not just here in Manitoba, it's faced right across the country, which culminated in a national inquiry about this. And so we know that there's recommendations that have come out of that we have been implementing in Manitoba, but we recognize, of course, that there's still more work to do. And we are committed as a government in Manitoba about making sure that we're moving forward on that front to ensure that we work with those individuals who have lost their loved ones. So yes, it was a discussion that came up today. There were many other issues that came up as well. And I can tell you that we had a lot of different discussions on different issues today. And so, but yes, that was one that did come up.
Did premiers tell you that they do think that you should move forward with that search?
I think it was primarily brought up by Indigenous leadership, and we thank them for bringing that forward. There was a whole host of other issues that were under discussion, things like housing, the environment, other things that you heard in the opening statements from our colleagues here. And so that was, and of course what is discussed at these tables is confidential as well, but I can tell you that it was raised.
Chief Woodhouse did, Chief Woodhouse did say in her.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I have a question for.
Okay.
Yes, so Chief Woodhouse said she called on Manitoba to come back to the table on the specific issue of searching the landfills, and she raised that with everybody in attendance. Is what you're saying today, is it that your decision is final and that is not going to be reconsidered at this point?
We have, yes, as I said earlier, as a mother, my heart goes out to the families that are going through this, and we will be there for those families. We want to ensure that they have the necessary supports that they need as they're going through this healing process. And I think I've covered off the rest of that answer and what I've said previously and what I just did in the previous answer as well. And I think that there's other ways where we can work together on what is a very, very important issue that we face, not just here in Manitoba, but right across the country.
Those families, though, say that they have not gotten that support up to this point. They have not gotten the counselor. Did the province perhaps let them down up until this point?
Well, I will tell you, we will be there for them. And we will provide the supports that they need. And let's identify what those supports are, but I can tell you definitively that our government will be there to help.
So why the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs wasn't invited today?
The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. So what we did is we were gathering today on Treaty 1 territory, so that's why we have representation from Treaty 1 in Chief Bluesky, who's here with us today, as well as it's the traditional ancestry lands of the Manitoba Métis Federation as well, and so I believe that was the basis of that. So there was some local representation based on the land that we're on now, and of course the national Indigenous organizations were invited to the table as well.
Last to you for Premier Stefanson.
Hi everyone, Mr. Stefanson. Regarding Mr. Legault's request about Bombardier, did you reach an agreement? Are you going to talk about this topic during the conversation?
I look forward to having all sorts of discussions with Premier Legault on a whole wide range of topics. Today was, of course, focus on Indigenous issues that we're facing across the country. But over the course of the next 2 days, I have no doubt that I will have those discussions.
To have this precise conversation about Bombardier.
Yeah, you know what, I'm not going to comment on that right now today, but certainly I know that Premier Legault and I will have many conversations about that moving forward.
Boeing does have a facility here in Winnipeg, and their proposal, they say, would create jobs here in Winnipeg. Are you supportive of Boeing getting that deal that the federal government's trying to sole source?
Yeah, my focus is obviously on economic development opportunities here in Manitoba, and I will continue to support Manitoba companies so that they can, you know, build and expand the jobs here in Manitoba. And so that's always been a focus of mine since I became Premier, and that is not going to end.
Premier, now that there's no remaining civil legal proceedings in the police headquarters, are you now ready to call an inquest into the various real estate and capital procurement issues?
Well, I believe it remains before the courts as we speak as well. There's one component of it where I believe there was an appeal that was denied in one component of it, but it still remains before the courts today, and so our decision on that remains the same.
Can I ask you about your priorities going into tomorrow and Wednesday's meetings? What are your top 2 issues that you want to bring to the table with your colleagues?
Yeah, of course, you know, economic development opportunities in Manitoba, which will be focused on our discussions on Wednesday. Tomorrow will be discussions on healthcare and, you know, labor shortages, the environment, other issues around those issues as well. So certainly coming out of this, we know that violent crime has been a challenge in Manitoba. So public safety, which will also be discussed tomorrow, will be a primary component of that. But obviously healthcare, it's the biggest part of our budgets. We'll continue to have those discussions as well. You know that the federal government, what they offered us was only 2% of our budgets. It's not enough, but we recognize, you know, we thank them for what they have offered us so far. And we'll continue to have those discussions and how we can share best practices across the country. And then, of course, on Wednesday, focus on economic development opportunities, trade corridors, and those types of things as well.
Well, one of the concerns raised by the national Indigenous organizations who were in attendance and those who were not in attendance was the format of the meeting. They want to be full partners at the table and part of the formal cost structure. What are your thoughts on that as chair of COP?
Yeah, no, I think it was important to have these discussions today and have that around the table that we did today and hear and listen to national Indigenous organizations and what their challenges are across the country and here in Manitoba. Of course, it's something that predates me. We've been meeting as Council of Federation. This is our 20th year this year, and you know, many of those decisions were made, you know, many years ago about what that looks like, and so I think it's just important that we sit around a table and have these discussions. I think we learned a lot from today's deliberations, and I'm very thankful for those individuals who came out today and participated in what I thought was a very good discussion.
It seems like the Council of the Federation has ceased to be a group of premiers working together towards common action and has now become just a lobby shop where you get together every summer and coordinate all your demands from the federal government in Ottawa. Is that true? What is this meeting about? Is it just about getting a common set of demands for Ottawa?
I couldn't disagree with you more on the preamble of your question today. We are all representing our various provinces and territories across the country. Just a couple of weeks ago, we got together as Western premiers, including our Northern territorial premiers as well, where we came forward with common ground on many issues of how we can work together and share best practices. And that will, I'm hoping, will come out of tomorrow's deliberations and Wednesday's deliberations as well. But I will tell you, as provinces and territories, we will continue to stand up for those people in our jurisdiction. And to the extent that there are common ground in those areas, we have no problem going to Ottawa as united provinces and territories.
What's that collective action? What exactly are you doing together?
Well, I look forward to having the discussions. I look forward to having the discussions in the next couple of days to see what those will look like.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.